Okay, it's End Times Writer, and I'm addressing Trump's second arrest. And some reason my camera is timing out sooner than what I wanted to automatically, so I got to talk a little faster and get to the point. You guys might be happy because I'm talking less. So basically, Trump was arrested second time, and it has to do with the documents that they said he has. That these were set 37 counts of retention of national defense information. That was like most of the charges, and then that he lied and he tried to hide it. Basically, that's most of it. But folks, what they don't tell you, and what I'm going to tell you, is a law. I looked it up. National Archives. The National Archives, under the section United States Code 44, Chapter 22, United States Code 44, or USC 44, Chapter 22, Presidential Records. Chapter 22 is Presidential Records. It says in Section 205, exceptions to restricted access. I'll read it to you. Here's an exception for restricted access. Point 3, it's the last entry on this whole law, on this code. The presidential records of a former president shall be available to such former president or the former president's designated representative. Now read it again. This is incredible, folks. It's right there. The presidential records of a former president, like Trump, shall be available to such former president, like Trump, or the former president's or Trump's designated representative. That's the law. That's the U.S. code in the presidential records and the archives. Trump has ownership of his documents and whoever he designates. That's the law. So all this stuff, he has these documents, they're national defense. It doesn't matter what they are. He has access to them. He can have them. You know, the National Archives actually asked. They're saying they asked. This is in the past. You know, before this arrest, they asked for Trump to give them documents, and he gave them some. I think boxes full. He bent over backwards, folks. He didn't have to give them any. He didn't take them out of the National Archives. These were his that he got when he left the White House. So remember that is the main thing. That whole case should fall apart based on this overall federal law here. Now, here's the thing. Remember, let me see, Sandy Berger. You remember him? Sandy Berger, 2005, President Clinton was in office. Sandy Berger was a main aide to President Clinton. He went into the National Archives himself and stole documents twice. Right, he stole them, put them in his pants one time. They caught him putting stuff in his shoes. Well, guess what? He was not a former president, and yet that was considered a misdemeanor. Maximum $100,000 fine, 1 year in prison maximum was a possibility. Instead, what happened with him? Pleaded some deal, and he only wound up with, remember, after stealing National Archives, and he actually destroyed some with scissors, $10,000 fine. And his security clearance was taken away for 3 years. No prison time. And another article I read said he had to do community service. That's all. Now that's a precedent on how they handled this thing about National Archives. Trump didn't take anything from the National Archives that we know of. These were when he left, he got them from the White House, as far as we know. And he didn't have to give any back. They're his. And they arrested, also with Trump, they arrested, Walt Nauta, who was a guy who used to be in the Navy, because he moved boxes for Trump, these documents, and they said he was an accomplice, basically, to Trump, helping him with hide these documents or not return them. That's somebody Trump designated, and the law says an ex-former president can have on who he designates. Here's the other thing. Okay, now let's move over. Remember, that's a big thing. Then we have the judge who's going to wind up hearing the case is District Florida Judge Eileen Cannon. Eileen Cannon, because Mar-a-Lago is in Florida, and that's where most of the documents were. Where Trump's house is, that's his main house. So that's why that's where the court's going to happen. Well, she was appointed by Trump, so the liberal media is like, "Oh, that's a conflict of interest. She needs to step down." No, because I looked it up. Something rang a bell, and I looked it up, and I found that the U.S. Constitution says that when a president appoints a judge, Supreme Court, district, whatever, when a president appoints a judge, the U.S. Senate must approve it. So no president's doing it by himself, and that's what happened. And he got a majority, 53 yays, and that included at least a dozen Democrat senators, including Feinstein in California. She approved of Judge Eileen Cannon. In my state, Nevada, Nevada, yay, Battleborn. I didn't know, but Cortez Masto, Senator Cortez Masto, she voted for her, along with 10 other Democrats. And then almost 24, I looked in the record and I found it, about 24, actually 23 other Democrat senators chose to abstain. They didn't vote for or against. So if there was any kind of real conflict, it would have came up there, folks, but it didn't. There was no big conflict. So people, that's a nothing burger, just trying to again make an excuse because they don't want a constitutional judge like probably Eileen Cannon is. And if they try to somehow go beyond that and want to appeal it, in that district, the Supreme Court that gets to hear the case, if it goes there, Clarence Thomas, Judge Clarence Thomas, who's a constitutional attorney, Supreme Court judge, he's fair. He's going to follow the law. It doesn't look good for these guys. So here's the other thing. I'm going to read something from the Bible. Proverbs 18:17. The first one to plead his case seems right until his neighbor examines him. That's what happens in these court cases, folks. And they come out, and they plead their case, and it seems all right. And the media, but then wait till they get examined, like I'm examining a little bit on my own, right? So I'm telling you, but wait till these lawyers are going to come out with even more stuff that I don't know. And that's why important. We have to have good judges. Pray for good judges. Deuteronomy, first chapter, Deuteronomy, verse 16. I'll read it to you. Moses is talking. Then I commanded your judges. He's telling the people this. I commanded your judges at the time, saying, hear the cases between your brethren, and judge righteously between a man and his brother, or the stranger who is with you. Verse 17. You shall not show partiality in judgment. You shall hear the small as well as the great. You shall not be afraid in any man's presence, for the judgment is God's. The case that is too hard for me, you'll bring it to me. So whether it's a smaller person like Walt Nauta, or a bigger fish like Trump, ex-president, they should be fair. Judges should not be afraid of holding righteous judgment. They should not be afraid who it is. And we need to pray. And the good thing is this stuff's going to come out, and there's already indication. They were trying to also want to sue Trump, saying that he was involved in January 6th fake insurrection. They dropped that case just in the last 2 days. Also, other case that now I just heard yesterday got dropped. This was in New York again. New York loves to go after Trump. They're so corrupt over there. They were trying to get him on real estate taxes value because they said he cheated on the value of his golf course and the taxes owed. But it looks like they're dropping that because guess what? There's nothing there, folks. So it looks like I made it through without being cut off. I got to fix it so I can go a little longer and not talk as fast. But anyways, it's probably better. You can replay it if it went by too fast. But end times right are out. Pray for Trump. Pray for the country. Pray for justice. God bless.